I would like to start by telling you a couple of stories. So as Rebecca mentioned, about 7, 8 years ago, I moved back to Singapore, and I have to be honest, I was totally detached, from what was happening in Singapore for my almost 20 years not being in Singapore. And I was in Xinjiang buying pork ribs to cook for dinner that night. And there was this elderly lady who was just standing next to me looking at, the pork ribs and pork. And I was just telling myself that $4.65 for a pack of pork ribs is really expensive. I mean, because coming back from Hong Kong and New York, I would think Singapore should be cheap, right? So I was really astonished. I was like, what, $4.65 for 2 pieces of bones, And there she was choosing, and so I went up to her and I said, can I help? And she's like, can you help me get the cheapest one? Right? And I kind of my heart sank a little, and I said, okay, let me help you. And then later on she said to me, even if I get the cheapest, I also need help with cooking because she has arthritis. I didn't know how to react, and I offered to pay for her, right? And she said no. She said, thank you for talking to me. I went home. Of course, the dinner that night wasn't that great. I was quite sad, right? And a few days later, I read in the news this 32-year-old unemployed mom threw her 9-year-old son out of the HDB flat, and the son is disabled. And so of course she got arrested. The son died, and her poor mom, is the sole survivor. And all of a sudden, she just lost 2 family members, one in jail, and one is no longer with her. And I cried. I was very, very sad because to me that's the reality. Coming back to Singapore, I thought the Singapore that I'm coming back into is a happy one, and but to the contrary, it wasn't. And that's when I told myself I need to do something. I need to help. And so I thought about it, and I came back to the office, and I asked, what do we do for corporate responsibility? And they told me it's disability as well as elderly, and that totally resonated with me, right? Because those are the 2 things that I encountered just over a few days, and so I said, let me help more. And hence I started volunteering more, and I started questioning, why aren't we doing more? Why aren't we doing this? And little do you know, and this is corporate 101 for you, for those of you who might still be learning, the more you ask, the more you say, you will get that job, right? So somehow I ended up taking on the position of the corporate responsibility leader, which I'm very proud and very happy to, because now I'm in a position to be able to influence, and also not to make prime decisions in a sense, but I'm able to mobilize. You think about it, right now we are almost 3,500 strong in Singapore. And globally, we're about 230,000 people, right? So if I can do my little part to influence, to make the world a better place, I'm actually very happy to do that. And so let's look at our achievements so far for last year. Just for Singapore alone, right? Through our skill-based volunteering as well as general volunteering, we clocked in almost 5 hours per person. If you're using a 3,000 head count, the total hours that we volunteered last year is almost 5 hours per person. And we have partners who sit on non-for-profit boards, because as part of our so-called, what skills do we have? We are accountants, we are consultants, right? So what people want from us is not so much of, us, it's more our skills. So we volunteer quite a lot by sitting on not-for-profit boards. And to have partners, we have about 120 to 130 partners to sit on 269 boards. I think that's quite an accomplishment, right? And then, of course, when it comes to donation, I do not know whether that is something that we should be extremely proud of, but to me, it is not only measured in dollars and cents. It's also about the hours and the heart. So as we look at this, we say, hey, we are doing quite well. It's average 5 hours per person that we volunteered last year. Maybe for this coming year, we should look at 8 hours per person, and over time, up it to 16 hours per person. Because currently, we do give 16 hours of skill-based volunteering hours to our colleagues, whoever who wants to volunteer for skill-based volunteering, because that's what we believe strongly in. And as we were talking about it, PwC Global came up with this ambition. By 2022, globally, we would like to be able to help improve the life as well as the future of 15 million people. Okay. And so that was a first, honestly, for my team to hear that, hang on, it's no longer about input. Because in the past, we have been measuring a lot about how much we give, how much we actually volunteer. But we don't really consider or count from the impact point of view. How many people did we help? So when Global came up with 15 million, we were like, whoa, that's like 3 times the Singapore population. How are we going to achieve that? Luckily, the US said they would take 10 million, so we're like, great. But that really prompted us to think, what exactly are we doing? Are we creating that very, very meaningful impact through our volunteering hours and our dollars? Because we shouldn't be doing, things that are not really maximizing the output. So we spent a lot of time, not just my team, it's really, we sat down with a lot of partners, including Catherine, because we were just exploring the various landscape. I remember I sat in one of the earlier meetings, and Bank of America did a presentation, and they said that in Singapore, there are 2 pressing issues. I'm talking about maybe about 4 years ago, right? One is marginal poverty, and the other one is elderly. Okay, and so we came back and we said, okay, let's just focus on that and see how we could maximize, how could we help, right? And so we also talked to various charities to understand what exactly do they need. Because what we realized is that we care a lot about what we want to do, but we didn't really understand what they need, right? And this conversation also started because I was just thinking, coming back to Singapore, my mom would be very happy to at least have me closer to her. And so I keep buying her food and, and ordering Red Mart sent to her. But one day she told me, she said, I just want to see you. Did you ask what I want? So I came back to the office the next day and I said to my team, I said, hey, maybe we really need to consider what our partners want, especially our adopted charities. Stop saying, yeah, maybe next weekend, we could take some elderly out to the zoo, and another day, let's just go read to the students or the children. We should ask our adopted charities, what do you need, right? And that's where, about 2 years ago when I took on this role, we started embarking on various new projects, right? So one of the things is that we do more on skill-based volunteering. And in terms of we conduct workshops, we conduct conferences, and then even as recent as this afternoon or this morning, we have a group of volunteers who took some beneficiaries from BizLink to MediaCorp. Because apparently some of the beneficiaries of BizLink is very excited to see how movies are being produced. They want to see their favorite movie stars. And so we asked them and we listened, right? So along that course, we then realized we all have our pet charity and we all want to do something that we like. But as a firm, if someone were to ask me, what does PwC stand for? What does PwC support? I can say it, but I'm not sure if my other colleagues could say that, right? And much as we have this cause like elderly and disability all along, people do not really know because we're just all allowed to do different things to support whatever we want, raise funds for different charities. And hence, when we sat down with Catherine and her team, it gave us a very, very different perspective, right? In various sense, because we want to have a more structured way of volunteering. We also want to be, and being accountants, we like accountability. We want to be able to be accountable for what we have done and to be able to measure the impact that that our work has given or has produced. So we then said maybe we should set up a foundation. And I tell you, it wasn't easy because when we first started talking about foundation, we have people who are like, really? Do we have that much money? To them, foundation means money, right? And then we have people who say, so what are we going to do with a foundation? Do we just have a name called foundation, but we continue doing whatever we are doing? Then why do we need a foundation, right? So we took in all this feedback, and then we realized also that as a partnership, it's not like a corporate, right? When it's a corporate, when you make decisions, it's much easier because you have a board of people making decisions and to represent the whole company. But as a partnership, much as I am the corporate responsibility leader, I still have various stakeholders I need to talk to and be accountable for, or accountable to. So it's not that easy. And I wouldn't want to, the moment I step down as the corporate responsibility leader for Singapore, that whoever takes over me start to change the causes that we support. Because then it's not sustainable. It's also not fair to the partners. Yeah, I mean, when I say partners, I mean, our not-for-profit partners and our charities, right? Similarly, my team. Now we have about 4 people working on responsible business, which covers D&I and CR and well-being. Is what if they leave the firm, right? And does that mean therefore we change the course? And so we need to think about succession plan as well as sustainable giving. Hence, we thought the foundation is actually a very, very good way to approach. We consulted our counterparts in the UK and the US and Hong Kong, China. They all have their foundation. And we hear from them what are the challenges and what are the benefits. One of the biggest benefits, of course, having a structured kind of way of donation, be accountable for it, is also bringing people together, right? So now our people will know, and there's no excuse for them not to know what we support. And at the same time, they are given the flexibility to do whatever they want, to raise funds for the causes. Having a foundation actually is good because we have a collective pot. You could raise funds today, and maybe, let's say 10 years down the road, you're no longer with the firm, but whatever money you have raised still sits in the foundation and will be applied for, future causes. All right? So that is also one benefit that we see, having a foundation and having, consulted with our other colleagues. And so these are the 3 causes that we currently support, our foundation currently support. Education is, as I said, it is because pretty much that's what our people do. We can teach and we could volunteer our skills, right? And it's overarching. It's actually, it covers any cause that you can think of, right? Education, upskilling, digital upskilling. Disability ties in with our D&I priority, because that's something that we are very, very concerned about, especially people who are challenged in different ways, they do need help. And oftentimes when we talk about doing charity work, we do not, we tend to go for the children, we tend to go for things that are easier to tackle. But there are causes out there that are, and there are needs out there that are not met. And we want to be the ones who will be able to, help may it be the NGOs or may it be the beneficiaries, right? So that ties with our D&I. And for elderly, it is really because that's one of the most pressing needs of Singapore. I remember the statistics saying by 2030, there will be almost 1 million people who are above 65. And I'm just going to be like about 60 around then. So I'm a little worried for myself too. So I think the elderly agenda is also something that is very, very close to our heart. So whatever we do, we want to be able to tie it in with our causes as well as our purpose and value, right? And in order for us to achieve that, of course, Catherine and her team will have to play a big role in it, and I'll just probably sit down and have more conversations on that. Catherine?
Hello, hi. Okay. Thank you, Charlotte. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Maybe just a very, very quick introduction to what is the Community Foundation of Singapore, or CFS for short. So we ourselves as a charity, so we were started in 2008. For those of you in the financial circles, you know that 2008, we started actually in September. And so not exactly a very good time to actually set up a foundation, right? But anyway, that was 10 years ago. And since then, we have actually raised quite a fair amount of donations. So what do we actually do? Back when we started, basically there wasn't an organization that could help donors, whether it's individuals or corporates, who wants to give in a systematic, strategic manner. And basically back in those days, if you wanted to do something like that, you had to set up your own corporate foundation, or you had to set up like a family foundation, like you would have seen the Tan Chik Tuan Foundation, the Liang Foundations in Singapore. So at that time, people were looking and saying, well, a lot of wealth has been generated, through finance, through real estate, but how come, in the early 2000s, not many people were setting up their own family or corporate foundations. And the answer was invariably, I'm too busy. It's too complicated nowadays. The laws are so difficult, and compliance, everything is so difficult. I don't really want to set up my own. So basically, that was when our first chair decided that, hey, why don't we come up with an entity that could help people to do just that? And we take away all the pain of the administrative part, getting a board, getting all the corporate secretarial work, the accounting, all done. So we do it all for them so that the donors can just focus on the fun part, which is deciding on the charities and the causes that they would like to support. And so that was how we were born. So the structure that we have was really, and we still have it right now, is the Donor Advice Fund. So it is a structure which is very flexible. It allows individuals and as well as corporates to actually establish a fund with us. They can name it as a foundation. In Singapore, if you have something called a foundation, the main criteria is that you cannot solicit donations from the public. Otherwise, you would call this a fund. And basically that is what we do. We help donors establish their own charitable funds or foundations. And as at today, we have about 126 such donor advice funds. We have raised over $130 million, and on average, we have been giving out about 10 mil a year for the past 5 to 7 years. And we have worked with over 400 charity partners. And I must say our relationship with PwC goes back a very long way. And it is really a story about excellent skills-based volunteering. The executive chair, Mr. Yeo Woon Jin of PwC, he was one of our first founding directors. And basically when he first joined, he put together the governance, the compliance, the risk management, the finance framework for us. And frankly, I must say that we must be very grateful to him, because otherwise, if a charity doesn't start off on a firm footing, it is always very, very difficult, to actually play catch up. But we started off, with the right governance structure, the right framework right from day one. And I think it is very important, because at the end of the day, we are taking people's money and we are helping them to give it away to do good. So it is a huge responsibility. And the last thing people want is that we are not managing or accounting for their money properly. So the bulk of the work that we do is really to make sure that whatever money that comes in, we account for it, and whatever money that goes out, we can also account for it. And it is not really just about making sure that every dollar goes to the right place, but it is also making sure that we achieve the impact that our donors want. Like what Charlotte has mentioned, right? She has 3 areas of focus: education, disability, the elderly. So, with the amounts of money that PwC is willing to give, what can be achieved? And at the end of the day, how can we help PwC do the reporting, whether is it back to Singapore regulators or back to worldwide PwC headquarters, where they share the information with all the different foundations around the world. So in many companies that we work with, CSR is I wouldn't say it it's not a full-time job, but a lot of CSR professionals also have to do something else. You know, it could be HR, it could be marketing, comms, whatever. But you know, usually time is never enough. And even in tiny Singapore, we have 2,000 charities. So how do corporates find the best partners that they want to work for? And I think this is where we can come in together with NVPC. We are actually, very close, sister companies. We are in the same place, same location. And I think together we provide the service of helping our, donors, people in Singapore who want to do well, who want to do good, how to do it better. And a lot of times you don't have to reinvent the wheel. A lot of times you just have to just ask. Right, and a lot of information can be freely shared.
So just about recently, I met with Catherine's colleagues. A few of them, actually, one of them is here today, because we just started our new financial year end, and then we said, okay, now let's take another look at what beneficiaries or what charities we want to work with. And so, of course, naturally, we would turn to our partner to say, because they are closer to the grounds, they know what are the various charities that need funding, right? Or what are the more pressing needs currently, that we are facing as a nation. And so her team came by and very professionally, laid out like 3 suggestions based on the causes that we support. And as we were sitting there, I was telling myself, I need to practice this. I better not have this unconscious bias, right? Because usually when we do some charity work, we tend to select, charities whereby it's easy. You could just give money and treat it as if you have done some good. And I said, no. I told myself as I was sitting through that meeting, and I said, we need to have an open mind, because in PwC, it's not only about donating money, right? It's also donating skills and time. So, we are looking for opportunities whereby we could do both, okay? And so when they pitched to us those 3 suggestions, I thought they were very well thought through. And honestly, my team and I, we might not be able to identify those 3 charities if not for CFS, right? And I think that is really, really amazing, and it's definitely money well spent.
Thank you.
For us, yes. Particularly, I just want to highlight one of the charities, right, it really never occurred to us, in a sense, is for people who suffered a stroke, or, they could have some kind of illness that prevented them from, continuing with their job, and they have to go for rehabilitation, and after the program, they would then have to look for a job. And as I was thinking it through, I was like, how does that tie in with our 3 causes, right? Most likely, I could link it to disability. But, and disability is not described as, you're born disabled. It could be due to other reasons you become disabled. And so I was trying to link all these things, but what actually connected me to that cause, honestly, is because I believe that we should give people a second chance. And some of these, people could be sole breadwinner. And if we do not help them stand on their feet again, then it is going to be very challenging for them, to continue on after their recovery. And then we thought about it further. Once they are done with the program, assuming they are fully recovered, as PwC, as an organization, we could consider hiring them, right? So it's not just that, okay, I give you that $10,000, $20,000 and help you, recover, and then we just say sayonara to you, right? So there are various aspects, and I'm very, very thankful that CFS actually gave us that perspective.
Yeah, well, thank you, Charlotte. But I think I'm sure there are many people working in the companies out there. It is important when you think about what you want to do for your company, right? It is important to really think about not just a one-off donation or a one-off event. It is more than that. And like what Charlotte has mentioned, it is what do the charities want. And very often, one of the most important things that we do is it is actually to communicate. Maybe, you know, 'cause we are all in Singapore, but we all speak different languages. And sometimes the charities, you know, will not be able to articulate what they want to the corporates, and the corporates may not be able to, you know, express what are their needs to the charities. And for us, you know, having seen so many charities and having worked with so many donors, more or less we know what is required. And a lot of times it is not just about, you know, is it education and you know, or disabilities. You also have to look at the profile of the employees. Like for example, if your organization has a lot of young men very interested in football, maybe it could be supporting a youth outfit, you know, or maybe sports, organizing sports activities like football with children or youth at risk. That could be something that you could actually marry employee interest, your donation money, and also something that is really needed by the charity sector. So I guess it is really about thinking about what are the assets that you have, what are the skill sets that the company has, how much money you would like to donate, what is the time frame, and then working with the charities to actually come up with a meaningful program.
So if I may ask, I guess we have the advantage because Woon-Jin, who's our chairman now, you know, used to sit on the board.
And now Trillian.
Yes. So what about for organizations here where, you know, they might not have the immediate connection with CFS? How could they reach out and, you know, how could they actually engage you?
Well, I think now you know who I am, you know who we are, just check out our website. You know, NVPC is always around, they are much bigger, they've got like 80 people, so many people around to help. But I think what is important is really to know that there is a group of people, you know, like us, that are always willing to help. I mean, our vision is to inspire giving. What is NVPC, sir? National Volunteer Philanthropy Center, right? So has to be something similar. So, but at the end of the day, there are people out there that's willing, you know, to share. And I must say that it is a very nice, cozy community. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much for sharing your perspectives. I just have one last question for both of you, actually. What advice would you give to companies who are starting to evaluate this, this potential next step in their giving? Maybe, maybe Charlotte first.
It wasn't really smooth sailing for us, and actually starting a foundation or having started a foundation is not the end of giving. It's actually the beginning, because this now forces us to constantly think like, are we doing enough, or are we just like, you know, having a name called the PwC Singapore Foundation and that's about it, and let it run on its own, and every year we just put in money from the budget and, you know, and that's it, right? Plain credit in that sense. But so to me, no, that's not what, you know, we want, and that's also not what our people want. So what I realized as we were setting up the foundation, there are a lot of challenges, and honestly, like I said just now, we are still facing those challenges, right? For me, one of the biggest one is getting people on board, okay? And it's not only the stakeholders, it's not only the partners in the firm, you know, because they are the ones who have to come out with the budget. You know, it's about getting even like Rebecca and her team on board, because we might be suggesting to do something, we might be suggesting to support a certain cause, but if the people around you who are executing it do not believe in it, it's very difficult to move along, right? And so it took us a little while to get the team together. Not that the team wasn't, you know, in agreement with anything, but it's more like having everyone be on the same page. Why do we need a foundation? What is foundation going to do? What kind of activities are we going to organize? And how are we going to empower our people, you know, to raise funds and, you know, one of the worst things that could happen is you organize a fundraising activity and nobody shows up. Right? That would be not only embarrassing but very demoralizing for the organizers. So it's made, number one priority to me at that time was really, we need to get people on board. Okay, the money aside, is really getting people on the same journey. And then the second thing is identifying the charity. And because we work with CFS, And at the same time, we work with the other partners. I mean, we do talk to NCSS, we talk to PwC, and as well as RAISE, we also deal with social enterprises. We often organize like conference for them, and all pro bono. So we talk to various people and say, what is it that we need? So identifying a need for the foundation, as well as the causes for the foundation, to make sure that we keep current, because we don't want to be supporting something whereby someone's going to tell us like, are you kidding me? That's all, that's no longer a need, right? So we need to keep current. So it's also working with various partners, coming up with activities and events that make sense. And then the third thing is accountability. So one of the things that attracted us to CFS is also because they're able to give us, like, let's say on a half-yearly basis, a report on how our donation went. How did the charity utilize the funds and their performance, etc. And that is something, honestly, if let's say tomorrow we were to cut a check and give it to a charity, they might not give us that report, even if we were to ask for it, right? So accountability not only to us, but to our various colleagues who will put in the effort, as well as the fundraising, time that they spend and the money, to make sure that they feel justified and they feel like, it's not like we took their money and kept it in the foundation for other purpose, right? So to me, that whole accountability thing is also a challenge. At times, how do you get that kind of report and also to validate it? And then the fourth thing is, how we have different time of the year. We have so-called busy season. Those of you who are familiar with the accounting profession, usually the first 4 months of the year, we are very busy. And then when we are less busy, our tax colleagues will get very busy, because once we're done with the audit, the tax people take over, they start checking the taxes, right? And so we can't always get one group of people together to do good together. So we need to organize activities throughout the year to make sure that we capture, the bigger population in that sense, enough volunteers throughout the year. So that itself is also a challenge. Imagine when we go out to a charity and say, hey, we have about 500 people who can come over tomorrow. Nobody is going to be able to take us on, honestly. The largest charity that could accommodate us probably would be like Willing Hearts, and it's up to 50 people maybe each time. And so when we have a group of like, how big is us now? Maybe about 3,000 to 3,500 people. We can't mobilize everybody at one time. And so to find that charity and to find the right timing for different people to do different things, that's also a challenge for us. Now you might say, with or without a foundation, those are challenges. But with a foundation, because you have a structure, you need to honor it. And you need to make sure that you manage it properly. I think that then forces us to put in more effort, in planning all these activities and planning the giving. So those are the four main things for us actually, and I thought I would share that with you, because it really wasn't that easy to set up a foundation. It's not just signing on the paper and then saying we're done. There's a lot of tears that's right behind it. And happy to share more with you if you are thinking of setting up a foundation yourself.
Great, thank you. And then so, Catherine, your last advice.
Well, I didn't know Charlotte did so much behind the scenes. Yep. Well, I think first of all, everything she said, very, very important. I would only want to add on is that look at the assets of your company. What are the assets? Is it the people, the space, even your IT systems? All these are assets. Be creative, look at these assets, see what could be of use to the charity sector. That is one. The other thing is involve the entire company when you want to get buy-in, right? Involve the people when you think about setting your objectives, choosing the charities. But, to do that, you must have a decision-making framework. We have worked with companies whereby the chairman says whatever he says, it goes. We have the democratic style where every head of department is in the room and then they vote. So this would typically take like hours. or there would be a CSR team that would come up with a few suggestions and the companies vote. But whatever the method of coming up with the decisions, basically it is important to encourage your your employees to actually all come together, because otherwise if there is no buy-in, then people will say, okay lah, it's just the boss idea. But if there is buy-in, people would be willing to actually step up and they would actually go the extra mile. And when you're working with a charity, be open, be frank, tell them about your challenges, tell them about your constraints. For certain times during tax season, you cannot come down. That is something that the charities may have to keep in mind. Or you have a lot of the non-Singaporean staff, activities must be in English to accommodate, or maybe activities could be in other languages because you have staff that speaks other languages. So all these things could be fed back to the charities so that they too can come and work towards a win-win kind of activities that the beneficiaries will enjoy and the staff will also enjoy. And I think at the end of the day, it is about commitment. It is about long-term commitment. It is not just about showing up one day to do one Chinese New Year lunch or one Christmas party, but it is really about having the heart to actually want to support charity. Ask what the beneficiaries really need, rather than what does your organization want out of doing CSR. I think once your motivation is right, things will just fall, fall in place. It may not be easy, things, there could be mistakes made along the way. Maybe the charity that you chose is not big enough to support all your colleagues. Maybe some of your colleagues might say, oh, how come things are slow, how come things are dirty. But I think it is important to actually explain to the staff that really you are there to help and benefit the others. You are there to benefit the community. The community is not there to help to organize a party for you. So start with the right motivation, and I think things will just fall in place. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.